Sidney Crosby, Sid the Kid, baby, Captain Canada, the gold medal goal. This guy has literally done it all. 3 Stanley Cups, Hart Trophy, scoring titles. Like, this guy is a natural born winner. But in today's video, we are going to be putting prime Sidney Crosby back into the 90s to see how good he would be, playing against great legends like Jaromir Jagr, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, Paul Coffey, Nick Lidstrom. The competition will be high. So first off, let's put Crosby back into the 90s. So there we go. We have Sidney Crosby in the 90s. He is rocking that 80s porn stash and the Jofa helmet, of course. He is also going to be rocking a wooden stick. We have put him back into the 90s. He's still going to be on the Pittsburgh Penguins. So let's check out the roster and see what it looks like. All right, so here is the 1993 Pittsburgh Penguins. We obviously have Sidney Crosby, but this is a prime Sidney Crosby, not a 35-year-old, so he's going to be 97 overall. He's going to be playing on the first line with Jaromir Jagr at a 94, and of course, Mario Lemieux, who's a 96. And this Penguins roster, honestly, is absolutely stacked. We should definitely be able to win a couple cups here. Our defense is kind of hurting, if I'm being honest. It's not bad, but it's not great either. So here's the deal, boys. We're going to simulate 10 years in the 90s and see how good Crosby can do. Will he be able to pick up Art Ross's, Hart Trophies, Ted Lindsay's, Maurice Richard's, Conn Smythe's, and of course, Stanley Cups? We're going to track all of that for 10 years to see how good he would be in the 90s. So the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to end up having a great regular season. They're going to go 61-17-4, good enough for 126 points. The New Jersey Devils are going to end up finishing first in the entire league, 2 points ahead of us, followed by the New York Rangers, the Red Wings, the Quebec Nordiques, and the LA Kings. Mario Lemieux is going to lead our team in goals with 66 and points with 123. Crosby is going to end up having 40 goals and 114 points. Jagr would have 112 and 33 goals. Lemieux is going to lead the entire NHL in goals with 66 and points with 123 in the entire NHL, followed by Crosby's 114, Jagr 112, Wayne Gretzky 103, Bobby Hull 101, Luc Robitaille 99, Jari Kurri was up there, Trottier was up there, Nichols. For goals other than Lemieux, it was Hull with 58, Gretzky 54, Howard Chuck 48, Robitaille 44, Sergei Fedorov 41, Joe Sakic 40, Lindros 40, and Sid the Kid 40. We would end up losing in the conference finals in Game 7 to Montreal, and the LA Kings are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat the Montreal Canadiens in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. Sidney Crosby would have 9 goals and 32 points in 18 playoff games. Gretzky would end up with the most points in the NHL for the playoffs with 33, followed by Lemieux's 32 and Crosby 32. Mario Lemieux is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. Zubov is going to win the Norris, the Lady Bing to Lemieux, and the Conn Smythe to Wayne Gretzky. Mr. Mark is going to take home the Vezina, and Doug Gilmour is going to take home the Selke. Pittsburgh is going to continue to absolutely dominate as they end up finishing first in the entire NHL, going 61-16-5, good enough for 127 points, followed by the Red Wings, the Rangers, the LA Kings, the New Jersey Devils, and the Montreal Canadiens. Sidney Crosby is going to end up having 53 goals and 136 points, a much better second year. Lemieux is going to have 68 goals and 122 points, Jagr 119 and 38 goals. Wayne Gretzky is going to be Wayne Gretzky as he leads the entire NHL in goals with 78 and points with 142, followed by Sid the Kid 136, Lemieux 122, Jagr 119, Trottier 117, Robitaille 110, Hull had 108, Yzerman had 100. For goals, I mean, Lemieux was 10 behind Gretzky, so it was not really that close. Other than that, Dale Hawerchuk had 55, Crosby 53, Joe Sakic 47, Fedorov 43, Yzerman was up there, Hull, Anderchuk. Somehow we were actually going to end up getting rolled in the first round in Game 7 to Hartford, and the New York Rangers are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat the Chicago Blackhawks in 5 games in the Stanley Cup final. Sidney Crosby was an absolute no-show in round number 1, 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points in 7 games. Lemieux would have a very good round number 1, 8 points and 4 goals in 7 games. Tony Amate is going to have the most points in the playoffs at 24, followed by Jeremy Roenick's 23, Sanderson 23, Christian 23, Verbeek 21, Brian Leetch 20. Gretzky will take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. Paul Coffey is going to win the Norris, the Lady Bing to Wayne, and the Conn Smythe to Zubov. Chris Osgood is going to take home the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go to Turgeon.
Nationwide is on your side.
So the Pittsburgh Penguins are yet again going to end up finishing first in the entire NHL, going 60-17-5. I mean, we have one of the best rosters in the entire NHL, so this is not a surprise. What is a surprise, though, is us losing in the goddamn first round last year, followed by the LA Kings, the Quebec Nordiques, the New Jersey Devils, the Rangers, Chicago, Montreal, and Detroit. Crosby's going to take a slight step back this year, 46 goals and 112 points. Lemieux had 105 and 54 goals. Trottier 104, Yager 100 and 41 goals. For the entire NHL, yet again, Wayne Gretzky is going to have the most goals at 68 and points at 119, followed by Sidney Crosby, who had 112. Yet again, he's going to be a runner-up to Gretzky. Brett Hull had 109, Lemieux 105, Jari Kurri 105, Trottier 104, Joe Sakic 101. For goals, other than Gretzky, it was Hull with 59, Lemieux 54, Howard Chuck 49, Crosby 46, Yager 41, and Lindros 40. And finally, we have made the Stanley Cup final. We are up against the Chicago Blackhawks. Can we go on and win Sidney Crosby his first Stanley Cup of the 90s? And sadly, we are going to end up losing in 6 games to the Chicago Blackhawks. Bryan Trottier is going to lead our team in points with 30, followed by Crosby's 29 and 15 goals. Lemieux had 26 and 16 goals. Yager was pretty good as well, almost point per game. Trottier is going to have the most points in the entire playoff run by any player on any team. We already know Crosby, Lemieux, Garand was up there, Yager, Nichols, Yzerman, Goulet, and Graham. For the awards, Wayne Gretzky is going to take home all the major individual awards yet again. Chelios is going to win the Norris, the Lady Byng to Wayne Gretzky, and the Conn Smythe is going to go to Goulet. Barrasso is going to win the Vezina, and Doug Gilmour yet again is going to take home the Selke. So we are going to end up breaking the NHL all-time wins record with 67 wins on the season. Good enough for 138 points. We had 11 losses and 4 in overtime, followed by the Devils, who won 59 games. Chicago won 57, the Rangers 54, Detroit 52. Crosby's going to end up having 51 goals and 126 points. Bryan Trottier had 121, Francis 116, Lemieux only, well, I mean, he did have 62 goals, but only 115 points. Yager 110. Oh my god. We had 4 players score over 110 points. That is absolutely insane. Yet again, the great one is going to have the most goals in the NHL and the most points at 158, followed by Jari Kurri's 139, Crosby 126, Trottier 121, Luc Robitaille was up there, Francis, Lemieux, Yager, and Joe Sakic. Wayne Gretzky is going to have the most goals at 78, followed by Lemieux 62, Yager had 52, Crosby 51, Howard Chuck had 51, Luc Robitaille 50, Hall 47, Joe Sakic 45, and the Yzer plan would end up having 40. And just like that, we are back in the Stanley Cup final yet again against the Chicago Blackhawks. Can we come back and get a revenge for last season and win Sidney Crosby his first ever Stanley Cup? And finally, Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins have gone on to win the Stanley Cup as they sweep the Chicago Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup final. It was not even close, but we finally got a revenge for last season. And Sidney Crosby has captured his first ever Stanley Cup in the 90s. Obviously, he had a lot of help with Lemieux, Yager, Trottier. Ron Francis is actually going to end up taking home the Conn Smythe for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Not Sid, not Yager, not Mario, but Ron Francis, I guess. And here comes our captain, Mario Lemieux, coming to lift the Stanley Cup, but we're not here for Mario, baby. We are here for Sid the Kid. Lemieux will collect the trophy, but he's going to pass it off to Sidney Crosby as the Pittsburgh Penguins are Stanley Cup champions in year number 4. Oh my god, are you kidding me? Sidney Crosby literally is not even on the list here. I can't give him the Stanley Cup. EA Sports, man, fix your goddamn game. What is going on? Where is Crosby? Crosby is literally the highest rated player on the Penguins. He's a 97 overall, and I can't even pick him to lift the Stanley Cup? No, he's literally not here. All right, boys, I guess I'm going to make him the captain. Screw it. Bryan Trottier is going to have the most points on our team for the playoffs with 28, followed by Lemieux's 26, Ron Francis 26, Crosby 9 goals and 23 points. Wayne Gretzky is the greatest player of all time. Paul Coffey is going to win the Norris yet again. The Lady Byng the Gretzky, and the Conn Smythe to Ron Francis. Martin Brodeur is going to take home the Vezina, and the Selke is going to go to Joe Sakic. Alright, so since EA Sports wants to absolutely screw me here, I'm going to make Sidney Crosby the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Where is he? There he is. And Lemieux, well, you can get the assistant captain, buddy. Yet again, Pittsburgh is going to end up winning 60 games, 62 to be in fact. We would lose 16 and 4 in overtime, finishing first in the entire NHL, followed by the New York Rangers, the Chicago Blackhawks, the LA Kings, and the Vancouver Canucks. Sid the Kid Crosby is going to have 46 goals and 114 points, followed by Lemieux's 110 and 64 goals. My god, Yager had 104 and 38 goals. Ron Francis was up there. Bryan Trottier. I mean, what are you going to do with this guy at this point? Wayne Gretzky's going to have the most goals at 78 and points at 147. Like, he just leads it every single year. I don't think Crosby's going to win any single goddamn awards. He does keep ending up second place behind Gretzky, though, with 114 this season, followed by Lemieux's 110, Jari Kurri 110, Yager 104, Howard Chuck 102, Luc Luke Robitaille won hundo. Hall, Sundin had 96 and 36 goals. For goals, Lemieux was going to come in second place with 64. Hall had 53. Howardchuk 51. Crosby 46. Luke Robitaille 44. Andrechuk had 43. Fedorov was up there and Tony Amate. Sadly, we are not going to go back-to-back as we lose to New Jersey in the conference finals in Game 7. And the Red Wings are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they beat New Jersey. I mean, they clean sweep. It was 4 games and out. Brian Trottier yet again. Oh my God, he's leading us in the playoffs every single year, this time with 25 points, followed by Lemieux's 23 and 13 goals. Crosby at 21, only 6 goals though. Stevens, Ron Francis, Naslin, Yager. Oh my God, Yager, 4 goals and 10 points in 16 games, also a -6. Gretzky's gonna have the single best season of all time, taking home the Selke Trophy, the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy. Paul Coffey, yet again gonna win the Norris. The Lady Bing to Wayne Gretzky, and the Conn Smythe to Burr. The New Jersey Devils are gonna end up finishing first in the entire NHL, going 62, 15, and 5. We would end up finishing second behind them with 57 wins, 21 losses, and 4 in overtime, followed by the Quebec Nordiques, the LA Kings, and the New York Rangers. Crosby is gonna have his best season yet, scoring 43 goals and 148 points, followed by Lemieux's 118 and 65 goals. Yager had 101, Trottier 99, Ron Francis 82. Finally, somebody else has led the league in scoring, and his name is Sidney Crosby. I mean Sidney Crosby, my bad, buddy. Crosby is going to lead the entire NHL in points with 148, followed by Gretzky's 137, Lemieux 118, Bobby Hull, or Brett Hull, why do I keep saying that? He had 118, Luke Robitaille 114, Yari Curry 106, Yager 101, Joe Sakic had 100, and Trottier 99. Now for goals, Gretzky is still going to take the cake at 74, followed by Lemieux 65, Hull 59, Fedorov 45, Crosby 43, Howardchuk 42, Wendell Clark was up there, Gagne 40, Leclerc 40. So yet again, we are going to end up losing in the conference finals to the Devils in Game 7. Oh my God, how does this keep happening? And the Chicago Blackhawks are going to go on and take home another Stanley Cup as they beat New Jersey in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. Sidney Crosby is going to lead her team in points for the playoffs with 27. He also had 9 goals, so that is a very good playoff run by him. Lemieux would only end up having 20 and 7 goals. Yager had 18, Mullen 15, Francis 15. Gretzky is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, and the Hart Trophy, while Sidney Crosby is going to take home the Art Ross. Scott Niedermayer is going to win the Norris, the Lady Bing to Gretzky, and the Conn Smythe to Tony Amate. The Vezina to Martin Brodeur, and the Selke Trophy is going to go to Wayne Gretzky. So we already know the deal at this point. The Pittsburgh Penguins are really goddamn good, winning 62 games, finishing first in the entire NHL, followed by the Red Wings, the Rangers, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the LA Kings, the same teams every year. Lemieux is going to have the most points on our team with 115, followed by Crosby's 113 and 44 goals. Yager was up there with 108 and 32 goals. Trottier 102, 35 goals. Yet again, Gretzky is going to dominate the most goals and most points in the entire NHL, followed by Lemieux's 115, Yari Curry 115, Luke Robitaille had 113. Crosby was up there, Yager, Bobby Hull. Oh my God, I said it again. Brett Hull, not Bobby fucking Hull. Doug Gilmour had 104, Trottier 102. For goals, Gretzky is going to have the most at 65, followed by Hull 62, Lemieux 58, Robitaille 48, Howardchuk 44, Crosby 44, Mark Messier was up there, Stevie Y, Yzerman baby, and Joe Sakic had 37. And yet again, we are back in the Stanley Cup Final. Again, we're going to play the Chicago Blackhawks. We are 1-1 with them in the Stanley Cup Final. Can we go on and win our second Stanley Cup of Crosby's 90s career? And yet again, we are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup for a second time in Sidney Crosby's tenure in the 90s as we beat the Chicago Blackhawks in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. We didn't choke, we would pull through, and now we are 2-time Stanley Cup champions. Sidney Crosby is going to end up taking home the Conn Smythe for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Captain Crosby, baby. Look at that mustache. He really blends in 1993. And here comes the man of the hour, the man of the video, the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the second time in the video. He has 2 rings in the 90s so far. I mean, what else can you say? His team is stacked, obviously, but this guy is just a natural-born winner. Crosby would end up having 32 points and 12 goals in 25 playoff games. Conn Smythe was definitely well-deserved. Lemieux had 25 and 11 goals. Yager had 10 goals and 24 points. Gretzky is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy yet again. Paul Coffey wins the Norris, no surprise here. Crosby obviously took home the Conn Smythe. The Vezina to Ed Belfour, and the Selke is going to go to Doug Gilmour, baby. Yet again, we are going to win 62 games, which is an NHL record. I think the most is 65 by the Bruins this season. But regardless, we are going to end up finishing first in the entire NHL with 137 points, followed by the Red Wings, the Vancouver Canucks, the Montreal Canadiens, and the Chicago Blackhawks. Crosby is going to have 54 goals and 128 points, followed by Lemieux's 117 and 55 goals. Yager had 116, Trottier 110, Ron Francis 103. Yet again, the great one's going to have the most goals at 73 and points at 141 in the entire NHL. Sidney Crosby, yet again, is a runner-up, this time with 128, followed by Jari Kurri's 123, Lemieux 117, Yager 116, Trottier 110, Brett Hall, Bobby Hall. Brett Hall, I said it right. Why did I change up? Oh my god. Brett Hall had 107, Ron Francis 103, and Luc Robitaille 98. For goals, other than Gretzky, was Hall with 64, Lemieux, Crosby, Fedorov was up there, Yager, Mike Modano had 41, Joe Sakic, and Sean Burr. And we are back in the Stanley Cup final, this time not against the Chicago Blackhawks, but the Vancouver Canucks. Can we go on and capture our third Stanley Cup of the video? Typical EA, man, heavily favoring the Vancouver Canucks in simulation. And we are going to go on and capture another Stanley Cup as we beat the Vancouver Canucks in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. I mean, we almost blew it. We had a 3-1 lead and choked that up, but luckily we clutched up in Game 7, and this is our third Stanley Cup of the video. Mario Lemieux is going to end up taking home the Conn Smythe for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, he is the guy who saved their franchise in real life, so I guess this is well deserved. And here comes our captain, Sidney Crosby, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the third time in this career. Well, technically in the 90s, his 90s career, whatever. This is the third time he's lifted the Stanley Cup in the video. And there he is, baby. Sid the Kid with that magnificent mustache, looking so goddamn good. Hey, yo. Mario Lemieux is going to lead our team in points for the playoffs with 36. Lemieux is going to have the most points on our team in the playoffs with 36. Yager would have 35. Crosby 30. Also 12 goals. Oh my god, Lemieux had 22 goals and 36 points. That is incredible. Yet again, Wayne Gretzky is going to take home all the awards. Paul Coffey wins the Norris yet again. Wayne Gretzky, the Lady Byng, and the Conn Smythe to Lemieux. The Vezina to Kirk McLean, and the Selke to Doug Gilmour. At the end of year number 8, the New Jersey Devils are going to be the best team in all of hockey, going 58, 14, and 10. Followed by us, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who win 59, 17, and 6. The Red Wings, the New York Rangers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Crosby's going to have 43 goals and 111 points, followed by Lemieux's 102 and 62 goals. Yager also had 102, but 38 goals. Francis, 98. Trottier, 88. Luc Robitaille is actually going to have the most points by any player in the entire NHL with 117. Followed by the great one, Wayne Gretzky, who had 113. Crosby, 111. Mike Gartner had 104. Jari Kurri was up there, 103. Lemieux, Howard Chuck, Yager, and Sergei Fedorov. For goals, Lemieux is going to have the most at 62. Actually, him and Gretzky would each have 62 apiece. Followed by Howard Chuck's 53. Hull, 53. Sergei Fedorov, 48. Robitaille had 47. Joe Sakic, 44. Gartner, 43. Crosby, 43. We are actually going to end up losing in Game 7 of round number 1 to Montreal. And the New Jersey Devils are going to go on and win the Stanley Cup as they sweep the LA Kings in the Stanley Cup final. Crosby would have 4 goals, 9 points in 7 games in the first round. Ron Francis had 9. Yager, 8. Lemieux only 1 goal and 4 points. That is tough. Robitaille is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Wayne Gretzky is going to win the Maurice Richard. Scott Stevens is going to take home the Norris and the Conn Smythe. The Vezina to Martin Brodeur, and the Selke Trophy is going to go to Joe Sakic. And for the final season, the Penguins are going to end up finishing first in the entire NHL, going 64, 15, and 3, followed by the Red Wings, the New York Rangers, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the LA Kings. Buffalo was up there, Quebec, and New Jersey. Mario Lemieux is going to lead our team in points with 125, followed by Crosby's 118 and 40 goals. Yager had 102 and 43 goals. Trottier, 98. Oh my god, Lemieux would have 63 goals. Yet again, Wayne Gretzky is going to prove that he is the greatest NHL player of all time. Oh, he had 69 goals. Nice. He would also have the most points at 146, followed by Lemieux's 125, Crosby 118, Jari Kurri was up there, Hall had 113, Fedorov 107, Luc Robitaille 105, Joe Sakic, and Jaromir Jagr. For goals, Fedorov is going to end up coming in second place behind Gretzky with 63 goals. Lemieux also had 63, Hall 52, Sakic 50, Leclerc 50, and just like that, we are back in the Stanley Cup final. We are up against the Quebec Nordiques Nordiques. Can we go on and win our 4th Stanley Cup of the video? And we are gonna win our 4th Stanley Cup of the video as we beat the Quebec Nordiques in 5 games in the Stanley Cup final. They were just no match for the greatest dynasty of all time in the 90s. That is Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now Crosby technically has more cups in the 90s than he does in real life. And there he is, Sid the Kid, baby, coming to get the Conn Smythe for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Definitely well deserved. He's our captain. He's our savior. He is daddy. Wait, what? Who said that? And here he comes for one more final time. Crosby coming to collect the Stanley Cup for the 4th time in the video. He is now a 4-time champion in the 90s, better than he was in the 2020s or 2010s, whatever you consider him to be in. But man, he is an all-time legend. 4 Stanley Cups in the 90s, 3 in the 2010s, kind of 2010s. 2009, he won his first Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter. Sidney Crosby would end up having 12 goals and 23 points in 17 playoff games. A very good playoff run by him. Of course, we already know Wayne Gretzky is Wayne Gretzky. Paul Coffey is the Norris at this point. Conn Smythe would go to Sid the Kid. The Vezina is going to go to Chris Osgood. And Turgeon is going to win the Selke. And that is going to do it for this video, boys. Sidney Crosby is going to end up winning 4 Stanley Cups in the 90s. That is only 10 seasons in the 90s as well. He has more Stanley Cups here than he actually does in real life. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, don't be silly. Wrap your willy.